Okay, so you all should see my browser that I have up. And what we're going to do for probably the rest of the class session is just kind of review some of the administrative stuff for the course. So the Blackboard site for the course, the syllabus and course schedule, some of the course policies, some of the ancillaries that go along with the course, the book, the WebAssign website, things like that. So if you go to courses.ccac.edu, that'll bring you to the Blackboard site. You can log in with your same username and password as your email. If you want to do this and follow along with me, that's fine. If you'd rather just kind of watch and then log in later, that's fine too. So courses.ccac.edu brings you to the Blackboard site. You can also go to my.ccac.edu, the portal, and then navigate to the Blackboard site from there. So either way, it gets you in. Personally, I like the deprecated site, which you can use this direct link to get to. I'll post it in chat. So this is kind of the older site. It's a little more bare bones, but it has some features that work a little better, and I just like it better. I don't like change. so this is what the older site would look like. Again, a pretty similar setup to this one, except it works a little better because you can see that this is supposed to bring up current courses, but it's bringing up all of my old courses. So you can navigate down to, whoops, that's the wrong one, spring 2024. Navigate to the class section, and you see a very similar look and feel. So I'll just use this one, but if you're following along in the what they call the Blackboard Ultra skin, you can follow along there as well. I posted an announcement yesterday, and if you are in this, if you're in the Zoom meeting, you probably either saw the announcement or saw the Zoom tab on Blackboard. Typically, I'll send announcements, maybe once every week or two, maybe something like that. Anytime something, interesting comes up. But with this being a Zoom section, I won't send them, super often, because usually we'll touch base during the class sessions, if there's anything that needs to be announced. So I won't be sending announcements as often as I would in, say, a fully online class, because there really is an expectation that you attend the Zoom sessions just the same way that you would attend, say, an on-campus section. So really the idea of a remote class like this is to try to mimic as closely as reasonably possible the feel of an on-campus classroom, where we're all in the same room physically looking at each other, but with the exception that we have you don't have to worry about transportation, you don't have to worry about geography. It makes some of those things a little bit easier. In the Zoom tab, you see that there are some Zoom links here. There's our class meeting Zoom link. You can always use this zoom.us/test. You can use this to test your webcam, microphone, internet connection, etc. So if you get a new microphone, or if you're wondering, wait, I wonder if my iPad or something would work for this instead of my computer or whatever, you can always just test there. And then I also have office hours. Note that there are two different links for the different office hours. One link for Monday, Wednesday, a different link for Tuesday, Thursday. It's a little bit annoying because when I set up the meetings, I can't tell it, like, use the same link for like these days at these times and these other days at these other times. So because the Monday, Wednesday meetings are at the same time, I can use the same link for those. Tuesday, Thursday are at the same time, I can use the same link for those, but they can't be the same link as one another. So make sure you grab the right link if you're logging into office hours. That'll always be up here on the Zoom tab. Once we have some recordings, there will be a URL under this Zoom links that says Zoom recordings, and you'll be able to go there and just see any of the recordings of the class sessions, including this recording from this first session. And then, of course, there's some information about Zoom. So some best practices, things like when you log on, it's usually a good idea to stay muted unless you're talking. So if you want to say something, you unmute, you say what you need to say, and then remute. I think that's pretty common knowledge these days, and it seemed like everybody was kind of on board with that through the introduction. But I usually recommend that because sometimes otherwise you'll get feedback. Like if I'm talking and then your microphone puts out my voice, or sorry, your speakers put out my voice and your microphone might pick that up and kind of feedback into the system. Zoom is pretty smart. It usually filters that out, but sometimes it, doesn't do as well as other times. And just as a general kind of etiquette thing, if we're in the middle of a lecture, like today is more of an intro day, so if you have questions, just kind of unmute yourself and speak up, that's fine. But if we're in the middle of a lecture, it's usually preferable to either post something in chat or do the raise your hand icon. And whenever we reach kind of a breaking point in the lecture, then I'll ask for questions, check chat, that kind of a thing. It just kind of helps the flow a little bit. Although if there's something that comes up, like if you all of a sudden can't hear me for some reason, or if I'm going over time or something, you can always speak up in those kind of situations. But it usually works a little better just like in a normal classroom, rather than just kind of speaking out randomly, to do something like raise your hand, post the question in chat, and then when we hit kind of a natural break, I'll address that. So we'll come back to the syllabus in just a minute. I just want to look through the rest of these tabs over here. We have some useful websites, so some CCAC resources here, the portal, the academic calendar, the online learning site, and tutoring services. And we also have some third-party ancillaries, so MAT090, Khan Academy, Patrick JMT. If you're looking for a different spin on a certain topic, some supplemental lectures, supplemental videos, those are good places to check out. I should have taken away this link to Zoom intro session recording. I'll have to edit that in a minute here, or when we're done with class. Course documents. So we'll talk about the WebAssign online homework system in a bit here, but the registration instructions document is on here. Note the class key in red up at the top here, which I'm trying to highlight and not having good luck highlighting, but on the top right side, there's the class key, ccac.cc.pa space 3263 space 3377. If you try to log on using that registration system, that works for like 95% or more of people. But if you're just having trouble creating an account that way for some reason, I've also posted alternate WebAssign instructions. These are pretty similar to the other ones, but just a tiny bit different. Some students have success with this if they're having trouble with the other one. And also note that the bookstore, so I didn't choose the bookstore. None of the faculty chose the bookstore the way that this works, but the bookstore, if you buy access codes through them, it can be a little difficult to actually get your actual access code. So the bookstore will give you an access code, but it's not actually an access code to like Cengage or WebAssign or anything like that directly. Usually what they'll give you is an access code to the bookstore's website, which is this brightwave.redshelf.com. So I know it's a bit annoying, but what you would do is you would take the access code the bookstore gives you, create an account on basically this bookstore's website, this Brightwave website. You create an account on there, you enter your access code there, and that generates, say, a WebAssign access code for you. And you take that WebAssign access code, follow these registration instructions, get into WebAssign. It's a little bit annoying, it's that extra step of creating an account and plugging in the public or the bookstore's code in order to get a publisher's code. There is a reason they do it that way. It's because under the old system, we would have physical pieces of cardboard that they would actually send around to the bookstores, and you would buy those, and you go in and you get a piece of cardboard, you'd pull off like the zip strip and type in that code, say directly into something like WebAssign, into the publisher's website. The issue with that though is that all of those codes these days are super specific as to like what textbooks they work for and don't work for, what courses they work for and don't work for. So it was just becoming an inventory nightmare for the publishers to keep track of which ones work and don't work for which textbooks, and for our bookstore folks to keep track of which, pieces of cardboard work for this course or that course. So this kind of automates all of that. So that's a plus. There's also no lag in the supply chain. So a couple of times we had run out of those little pieces of cardboard and, had to wait a day or two or something for the publisher to ship more. So this gets around that problem, but it creates a little bit of hassle on the front end. So that's the reason for it. I like to at least tell you the reason so you don't think that everybody's just, nuts with all these things. But so that it's a little bit more hassle, but it gets around some of those problems that we used to have. So, one extra step, but it does, work. It's more streamlined maybe than it used to be in the worst case scenario, but probably less in the best case. Yeah.
I might log off. I have an online doctor's appointment.
Sorry, is there a question?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh. Okay. I was having trouble hearing, so if there's a question, if you want to pop that in chat, let me check. Yeah, we'll get to book and all of that in just a minute here. Yeah, and as Julia mentioned, yeah, Zoom is great because you don't have to drive in the snow. Just a side note on that is if the college is closed for weather, Zoom classes are actually canceled as well. Even though, typically we could log on. If the college is closed, the college is closed, and our class will be canceled just like any on-campus class. So, just a note on that. If that were to happen, I would send around a message and an announcement and just let you all know. But, okay, so moving down to textbook information. The textbook for the course is an open educational resource. It's this OpenStax Elementary Algebra by Marasek. And you can find it at this link. So I'll pop this in chat. This is also on Blackboard. And you can see that you can access the whole book on here. This is just a direct URL. You don't have to log in or anything like that. It does kind of pop up a couple things here and there asking you if you want to donate or something. You can just close out of those and that's fine. But you can view the whole book here, see the table of contents. You can download it as a PDF if you want to just kind of keep it accessible on a phone or tablet or something like that. You can buy a printed copy if you prefer to work off of a printed copy. You can find them on Amazon. I think that's what this takes you to. Yeah, takes you to Amazon. And you can see that, a new printed copy is about $52, but you can find used versions of the paperback for a lot cheaper. And I'm not seeing the used. Oh, here, buy used for $26, it looks like. So if you wanted a physical copy, you can go that route, but you don't have to have a physical copy. You can just use the PDF or even the online version is fine. Note that you will need access to WebAssign, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But there's a 2-week free trial for WebAssign. So everybody can log on today, can access the ebook also through WebAssign. Again, you don't need to be logged into WebAssign. You can go directly to the OpenStax website. But if you're in WebAssign and you wanted to look something up in the book, it's also integrated into WebAssign as well. So with that 2-week free trial, you can get access to WebAssign, you can get access to the homework and all of that while you work out that access code, obtaining an access code or paying for the WebAssign access. And again, here's just some of my information repeated. Zoom office hours and so on. Just a quick note also for Zoom office hours. Zoom has this annoying, feature or bug, however you want to look at it, where if I'm the only one in a meeting, sometimes it will force close the meeting. Like it'll just close it and not even tell me that it's closing the meeting. And sometimes it doesn't. And I'm not really sure what all of the criteria are for when it decides to close the meeting or not. So sometimes I'll have opened office hours, open my Zoom window, and then it closes it in the background and I don't notice that. If that ever happens, just log in and it'll probably say something like waiting for host to start the meeting. It'll send me an email, and I'm always watching my email as well. So my email will ding, or I'll see it pop up and it'll say like so and so has joined your meeting, and then I'll just log back in if it's booted me. So so it does happen occasionally. If that happens, if you log into Zoom office hours and I haven't started the meeting, just hang out for a couple minutes and I'll log on. I should log on, within a minute or two. And then we can, chat in office hours. Okay, so coming up to the syllabus tab, this is where we'll spend a decent amount of time talking about the course policies and so on. Something I'm trying this semester is this simple syllabus. The college is encouraging us to try this, and this might display a little better on your phone or tablet. I'm going to be working off of a PDF version of the syllabus. They're slightly different, but the high points are all the same. The important details are the same between the two. But I'm going to open this. Oh, and this shouldn't be available right now. Okay. I'm going to update that and post it a little bit later. Okay, so this is the syllabus for the course. This is essentially a contract between me and each one of you, but also between each one of you and each other person in the class, and really between each one of you and kind of the greater college community as a whole. And this is saying these are the expectations of the course. This is how the course is going to run. This is what you can expect from me, and this is what I expect from you. The first page is mostly boilerplate, just information about the topics covered in the course and so on. We have our section information here, meeting Tuesdays, Thursdays, 8:30 to 10:10 on Zoom. The final exam will be the week of May 6th. And then some of my contact info down here. We've discussed already the required text. Some additional required materials. You'll want to have access to a graphing calculator, and in particular, a calculator that is only a calculator. So not using your phone as a calculator, not using, Desmos or something online as a calculator, but a physical device that is only a graphing calculator. So something like a TI-83, but if you have a different TI, or if you have a Casio or something, that's all fine, or an HP, those are all fine. But you would need a graphing calculator for the course, or strongly recommend a graphing calculator. Regularly checking your CCAC academic email and your Blackboard account. So email, I would recommend checking once per day. Blackboard account, I say here at least once per day, but really if you log into Blackboard once a week or so and just make sure that nothing has changed or anything, that's probably sufficient, especially in the Zoom class where we're touching base a little more often than, say, an online class. Reliable access to a computer with webcam and the internet in order to connect to and participate in Zoom class meetings, and access to the WebAssign homework site. And we'll talk about WebAssign in a few minutes here after we make our way through the syllabus. Just kind of a side note that there are a lot of resources that are available to you through the college or through external sites. If you get stuck on anything, the first thing is just to reach out to me. Either pop into office hours, shoot me an email. If anything, if anything happens that you're struggling in the course, you're confused on a particular topic, there's something, in your personal life that's a challenge with getting things in the course completed, the more you communicate and the more quickly you communicate, the better. If you wait, until you're a month past, due on homeworks and miss an exam or something, it's going to be much less likely you can get that remedied than if you reach out to me very quickly. you can, it's a little bit harder in a remote environment, but you can always set up a work group. I know that there were a few folks in kind of nursing related fields. There were a few folks in psych related fields. So if you find people with areas of interest that are similar to yours, or maybe you recognize, throughout this week as your classes start, maybe you see that the same person's in a couple of your classes. If you want to set up a work group, plan to meet in, say, the math cafe or one of the cafeterias or libraries or something on one of the campuses, that's an option. Getting in touch with the LAC in South Campus. This is located on the 5th floor of the library building. The other campuses also have LACs, learning assistance centers, and math cafes. So those are tutoring options. The LAC kind of offers one-on-one individual tutoring. Might be a good idea if you, say, were to miss a class and wanted to review something, or if you're like looking to study for a test. The math cafe offers walk-in tutoring. So you can kind of walk in, it'll be more of a group setting. The facilitator or tutor might kind of be floating between a few different people. So you might not get their one-on-one attention, but it's a little less structured. It's a little less formal. You don't have to schedule it in advance. And then also, just if you want some extra resources, sometimes it's just nice to hear a certain topic explained a different way. Maybe the way that I explained it doesn't really resonate with you, but the way that, say, Patrick JMT explains this particular topic works a lot better for you or something. So you can always look at those other math websites for additional resources. The grading plan is homework counts for 40%. That'll be on WebAssign. So those will be homework sections that are due each Sunday. We'll have 2 unit exams. So unit 1 and unit 2 exam that'll each be worth 15% of the course grade. So the unit 1 exam will cover chapters 1 through 4, if I remember right. Unit 2, 5 through 7. And then the final exam will cover everything from chapter 1 through chapter 8. So the final exam will be worth 30% of the course grade. Note that I do round up, mainly because I don't see the value in quibbling about 0.1 or 0.2 percentage points. So I just round up to the next full percentage point. So an 89.1% rounds up to an A, 79.1% or higher rounds up to a B, and so on. Communication expectations. Please allow kind of 24 school hours in a sense for an email reply. I do try to get back to folks within 24 calendar hours. So if you email me on Saturday, I try to get back to you on Saturday or early Sunday or something. But my kind of guarantee to you is that 1 business day. If you don't get a reply from me in 1 business day, then please send me a reminder email. I do get a lot of emails from students. I get a lot of administrative emails. I'm department head for the math department at South Campus, so that gets me a whole bunch of emails, and then just general, college administrative stuff that they are always sending out. So occasionally I do miss a student email. If I missed your email, if it's been 24 hours, it's been a day or so, and you haven't heard back from me, just shoot me a reminder. That pops it to the top of my inbox. Make sure that I see it. I'd much rather you send me a reminder than, a week later when I'm cleaning out my inbox, realize that I missed a student email. So yeah, please send me a reminder if I don't get back to you within this roughly 1 day. As was kind of mentioned in our previous discussion, so for developmental classes for math, that means 080 and 090. So this class, a D grade is not considered passing for the purposes of moving on to the next course. So typically in a course, like if you're taking, let's say Calc 1 and you get a D, you can move on to Calc 2. But for 090, if you get a D, you cannot move on to, say, 108 or 106 that uses this course as a prerequisite. So you need a C or better in order to move on. Now, I mean, as far as GPA points go and all of that, like a D is a D, the same as everything else. There's no difference in like effect on your GPA or anything like that. but it's just a question of whether you can move on to the next course in the sequence. And for 090, you need a C or better to move to the next one. And, most folks in this class are looking to get through this class and then take another, say like a 108, or maybe like a 106 or something like that. Here's some boilerplate from the college. Oh, I don't know why that B has a strike through it. That shouldn't be like that. Every once in a while when I go from Word to a PDF, it kind of does crazy stuff. But so just some information on this being a remote course. This is a remote Zoom course, obviously. So these kind of special policies apply, non-standard policies. You have to join the Blackboard site for the class. So log into Blackboard. Again, that's, there are fewer ways for us to communicate with one another. So I will use Blackboard more often than I'll use it in an on-campus class, but probably less often than a fully online class. And you have to be willing and able to attend and participate in the Zoom meetings. So obviously this means like having access to the internet, maybe having a backup plan. If your internet's down, do you have a library or a cafe or something where you could go and at least, pop in a set of earbuds and log on to the meeting, even if you wouldn't be able to maybe participate as openly as at your own house. And also having the technology to be able to do that. CCAC does have a laptop loaner program. So if that's, an issue with you, if it's maybe you're just logging on with your phone and that's maybe a hassle, you can look into that. Let me know if you want more information on that. But yeah, ability to log into the Zoom meetings. It's also required that you log into or log on to sign up for and pay for the WebAssign access. This is the online ancillary for the course. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more after we're done with the syllabus here. This should be done by the end of the first week of class. So in a remote class like this, it's always a little bit hard for me to decide whether to report somebody as attending or not attending. So this is one of the things that I look at. When I have to report to the college, hey, you sent me this roster. Is everybody on this roster actually attending? And just as an aside, the college wants to know that because the college and me and students don't want somebody on the roster who doesn't think they're enrolled in the course. Maybe they thought they dropped the section, but it didn't process for some reason. Much easier to handle that in the first week of classes. The registrar reaches out to them and says, hey, do you really want to be in this course? You didn't show up. And they say, oh, sorry, I thought I dropped it. Get them out early, rather than, getting to the end of the course, they get an F. They look on their transcript. They're like, wait, why do I have an F in this course that I don't think I had signed up for? And trying to work things out then, right? So that's the reason we do that. But again, it's important to log on to WebAssign, at least create an account and use that 2-week free trial by the end of the first week of classes. That way, that's just another kind of, a thumbs up for me that says, okay, this person knows they're in the class. They want to be in the class. I'm going to make sure that they're marked as having attended so they don't get, dropped from the class by the registrar. Additional details for that login on the Blackboard site, again, under this course documents tab. Note that if you buy a physical version of the book, if you go into Amazon or something and buy the physical copy of the book, which again, you don't need to do, you can use the PDF version if you want. But if you do buy a physical copy, it probably won't come with access to the WebAssign site. Those are kind of two different things. Like the WebAssign site is separate from the physical copy of the book. There will be 3 exams throughout the course. These exams will be proctored virtually using something called Examity. If you've heard, bad things about Examity, that it's not worked or that it's very technically complicated, most of that complication and that trouble is with Examity's live proctoring system, where you're like essentially joining a Zoom meeting with a live person on the other end, and they're kind of handling the proctoring. This does cause some hassles, and especially these folks tend to be in a different country. A lot of times their internet's not so great. A lot of times there's a language barrier. But the way that I run Examity, I only use the automated service. And this pretty much gets rid of all of those technical complications and, internet issues and language barriers. It's basically just like you log on and there's the Examity servers just record your session, and then I can view it later if there's any flags or anything like that. And just a side note on that, Examity is pretty sensitive when it comes to throwing flags. So if you get a flag on an exam, it really doesn't mean anything. It's like, first thing to know is that Examity saying that there was a problem, it doesn't do anything. Examity can't go in and like change your grade in WebAssign or anything like that. Or it can't like, email the dean and say, hey, this person did something that I didn't like. Examity, if it throws a flag, it doesn't do anything by itself. What it will do is it'll just, just let me know that there was a flag, and I'll go and I'll look at it, and essentially all the time it's just somebody like their eye movement, something in Examity is found suspicious, and it's like nothing, or maybe the microphone cut out for 5 seconds or something. So don't get worried if Examity says that there was a flag during your exam. Almost every time it's just nothing, and I just ignore it. As long as you're not doing anything that's not allowed, you're completely in the clear. I did notice that there's something in chat. Oh, okay, that was from a little while ago, but yeah, North Campus Math Cafe is located on level 3. Okay. I forgot to pop my chat window up over to the side here, so there we go. Yeah, so each exam will be available for roughly 1 week, and that way you can take the exams at your convenience. So if we were to do kind of proctoring in the Zoom session, then number one, some students don't like that because you might have to have your camera on, invisible to a lot of other students. Some folks prefer not to do that. And number two, you'd have to, be here at a certain day, certain time. And if you miss that, then we'd have to figure out a way to make that up. But with Examity and with WebAssign, with the exams being up for a week or so, that gives you a lot of flexibility for when to take the exams. So the exams won't actually be taken like during class time. We use class time for, for understanding the material, and then the exams will be taken during, a roughly 1 week window where you can take it anytime in that window. Note that no due dates will be given, or no due date extensions will be given, because again, there will be a full 1 week window where you can take it. So if something does happen, if there's an internet glitch, if there's a power outage or something, that's more than enough buffer that you can wait until that's over and then take the exam. So I strongly recommend against waiting until the last day to take the exam, because that gives you just very little buffer. Note the time expectation for this course is between 8 and 16 hours per week. That does include lecture time. So lecture time would be somewhere in the ballpark of 3 of those hours, but that means somewhere between 5 and say 13 or so hours working outside of class on things like maybe rewriting notes, studying for exams, doing the homework, reading the textbook, those kind of things. So it is a pretty significant, time dedication that's expected. And I think a lot of students don't understand that that much time is needed for a college course. So, we're covering a lot of material, and the material builds on itself. So if you fall behind this week, next week's probably not going to make too much sense, right? So make sure that you're able to dedicate and plan out 8 to 16 hours per week to devote to this class. A couple notes down here. I'll let you read through the details here. But the the last kind of important note is, unless arrangements are made in advance, you're required to take exams when they're scheduled. If you miss an exam without a good reason, without some kind of a very extenuating circumstance, you receive a 0 for that exam. Again, with the exam windows being a week long, there aren't too many good reasons for missing an exam. So as a kind of a general rule is that typically no extensions will be given. So when I say unless arrangements are made in advance, I don't mean if you just email me and say like, hey, I plan to go to Florida that week, like, can I take the exam some other time? The answer there is no. We're talking extenuating circumstances like, a medical issue that means you can't take it that week for some reason, or family member died and you need to travel out of town, and that's going to take up, most of that week. Something like that. Pretty extenuating circumstances would really be the only way that I would give a due date extension, again, because of those basically week-long windows for the 3 exams. And then we have our course scheduled on here as well. So today, course introduction, and then reviewing chapter 1. We're not actually going to review all that much, just given where we are in time. But there will be a chapter 1 review posted to WebAssign that you can work through between this class and Thursday's class. And then you see roughly what we're going to be working through each day. So the chapters are in bold here. And you also see the Unit 1 exam. That's going to be the week of, roughly this week of the 5th through the 7th. I kind of put a makeup review day here, so that kind of bumped this to the next line down. But this week of March 5th through 7th, Unit 1 exam on chapters 1 through 4 will be available for more or less that whole week. Typically, I'll do like a Monday morning through Sunday, maybe Monday at 9 a.m. through Sunday at 11:59 p.m. We have spring break. Unit 2 exam will be this week, April 23rd through the 25th. So this way you can plan ahead of time, make sure that you have everything scheduled. And then the week of Friday 5/3 through Friday 5/10, that'll be our final exam week. And just like the other exams, the final exam will be available for that 1 week. This doesn't go through Sunday the 12th, just because we're going to end the class that Friday. That's whenever most online classes end. And typically, in a Zoom class, we would have actually a class session where we take the final exam. But instead of that, we'll probably just do kind of a review that day. We have to do something that day, but it'll be an optional review. And that'll give you flexibility for when to take the final exam as well. So you can schedule it around your other finals, whatever works best for you. That also means that I'll be able to turn around grades a little more quickly, get you your final grades a little more quickly, so that you know where you stand for, either transferring credits or for summer semester, anything like that. Okay, so that is the syllabus. Does anybody have any questions on any of the policies, the procedures, anything in the syllabus? All right, then the last thing that I want to talk about is WebAssign. So let me jump over to the student view here. Okay, so when you log into WebAssign, easiest way to get there is just to go to webassign.net and then log in. You can also navigate through like cengage.com, or I think maybe it's called cengagebrain.com, something like that. You can navigate through that system. I like just going directly to webassign.net. It's a little cleaner. And what you'll see is the main point of interest is the assignments. So working through the homework sets, And then when we have unit 1 or unit 2 exam or final exam, those will be up here as well in the My Assignments tab. Note that for the exams, I'll post sample exams ahead of time, so you'll have a pretty good idea of the length of the exam, the type of material that'll be on the exam. You'll be able to work through that sample exam and get a pretty good feel for what the actual exam will be like. But here we have 3 assignments that are due, if I can highlight this, which I don't seem to be able to, but that are due this coming Sunday. So Sunday the 21st. Again, note that you can use the 2-week free trial, so strongly recommend that you log in this week, create an account, get logged in with the free trial, start working through this material, and then if you need to work out the access code or anything like that, you have that 2-week buffer to do that. But get logged in. I would recommend, right after we finish class today, get yourself logged in, get everything set up, and there is that 2-week free trial, so you don't need to have an access code or anything right at this point. There are some additional resources down here. So there's information from the book. You can click the book and it has a link over to the book. And if you open the homework set, this is basically what the homework looks like. You have an information bar at the top here that tells you, your score out of 58. We haven't attempted any problems, but if we go through and attempt some problems, it'll tell us whether we got them right or wrong, how many points we have, all of that. When you attempt a problem, if you get it right, and then if you reattempt it, the score is always the max score that you've gotten. So if you want to reattempt it for practice, when you get it wrong, you don't have to worry about taking points off your score. It'll just keep that full credit that you had gotten previously. So if we have a question like this, let's figure out -3 to the 5th power. Let's say we think it's, say, 21. Submit answer. And we see it tells us right away that we got that wrong. We have 0 out of 2 on this problem. So this problem is worth 2 points, which we can see in the details. 0.0 out of 2. Also for these, for this review section on chapter 1, you have 100 submissions, so 100 tries on each problem. Each problem is basically submitted individually, so you don't have to submit the whole assignment at once or anything like that. And when you submit a problem and you get the credit for it, that credit goes right to the grade book. Everything updates live. You don't have to do any kind of final submission of a homework set or anything like that. When you're happy with your score, just move on to the next homework set or just be done with it. There's nothing you have to do to finalize your homework submission or anything like that. Okay, so maybe we say we think this is the answer. And now it gives us the check mark, and we can see up here that we got 2 out of 2 points for that problem. If we were a little confused, we could either visit the ebook, we could practice another version if we wanted to just get a little more practice on this. And let me switch my share here. When I do practice another version, it pops up a window that I can do another attempt on. Let me switch back. Or the other thing you can do is ask your teacher. The nice thing about this, as opposed to email, well, one, it's everything is just right here in the website. But the other thing is, if you send me a message just asking me hey, I tried this, I tried a couple of things with this problem, I'm not getting it right. Whenever I look at your message, I see exactly what problem you're looking at, exactly what your randomization is. So this -3 will change from student to student or from attempt to attempt. And then I can answer you right back in the WebAssign website. So that's, I think, a really nice feature. It's easy for me to kind of keep track of all my student messages, or it lets me know exactly what problem and what section and what course you're asking about. So you can use that. You can also definitely email me. Yeah, somebody over here asked, they used this for Math 080 last semester. Do you need a new account? You should not need a new account. I would recommend using your same account. But you will need a new access code because this would be a different textbook from your Math 080 textbook. So you'll need a new access code for this Math 090 website, but you can still use the same account, the same username and password, login credentials as before. All right, there's so Morgan raised their hand. Do you can unmute and ask your question?
Okay, I have a couple
Yeah.
questions.
Mhm.
So for Math 080, we didn't use WebAssign as much as he had us physically write down everything. Like I have both OpenStack books. Like I have
Mhm.
book one and book two. So my question is with how the books line up, um, I'm a little confused on how the books line up, like the physical books, because I think I'm still in book one, then book two of because I was looking of where we're starting
Mhm.
and how the books line up.
Yeah. Yeah, so in OpenStax um there are kind of three of these kinds of algebra books. So one of them, it's a little hard to see, but one of them is elementary algebra,
Okay.
and then there's intermediate algebra, and there's pre-algebra. So we're working off of the book Elementary Algebra, and these editions, like first edition and second edition, so like they're on the second edition of the elementary algebra book. The first edition is pretty similar, but it's just like going from the first to the second. They've maybe made some corrections to typos. They maybe corrected some errors, added more problems. Every once in a while, they'll jumble around a few of the sections if they think this section works better before that one, or they'd like to break this big section into two pieces. Sometimes they'll do things like that, but usually that's pretty limited. So if you're saying
Uh,
you have two versions, you might have something like the pre-algebra book in the elementary algebra book, in which case we'd
I
be in the elementary.
okay, so I have both pre-algebra books.
Okay. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the pre-algebra book is the book for Math 080. So
Okay.
that would be, you would have two editions of the Math 080 book, and we're working out of this elementary algebra book here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's I was because I was looking on like the book online and I'm like, wait, this kind of like looks exactly like the pre-algebra book. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh boy, better ask a question.
Yeah, in chapter one, wherever I'm at here, chapter one in the elementary algebra book, the one for our course, is basically a crash course in pre-algebra in Math 080. So that's what this kind of review section is it's like, okay, all of the 080 book, all of the pre-algebra book crunched down to like one chapter, just as a crash course review, just as a reminder of those topics. And then starting in chapter two, and definitely say when in chapter three, that material should look new. Yeah. And I accidentally sent that as a direct message to somebody. Sorry about that. Um, uh, I'm popping the URL into the chat over here. There, now it went to everybody. I popped the
Okay.
URL into the chat over here, so that'll take you directly to the online version of the Math 90 book.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good question though. Okay, so one of the super nice things about these online ancillaries is you get this immediate feedback, and that's one of the really big pluses, and that's one of the reasons that math instruction has really gone more this route rather than the kind of older paper and pencil version. You know, you think the turnaround time for paper and pencil homework is at least a week. So, you know, maybe I would give you an assignment on a given Tuesday, you know, at best that's going to be due on Thursday. So you're going to handwrite, you know, your whole assignment, hand it in on a Thursday. And then the earliest I'd get it back to you is the next Tuesday. So that's about a week turnaround time, if not longer. You know, I would typically think that it's kind of short notice to give you only, you know, really one full day to work on it. So the turnaround time is a lot longer. And what that typically means is that you might go through and do 10 or 15 problems, and you might misunderstand something, and you might teach yourself to do those 15 problems the wrong way. You hand in your homework, you think you did everything great, and it's a week later before you get feedback that says, oh no, wait, actually you did something wrong. And in the meantime, we've had 2 class sessions. You're confused on these next 2 class sessions because they build on the thing that you misunderstood. But for something like this, the turnaround time, that feedback loop closes instantaneously. As soon as you enter the wrong answer, it tells you it's wrong. You haven't practiced doing it the wrong way 10 times. You've done it 1 time the wrong way. You get that immediate feedback. You look and say, okay, what did I do wrong? Oh, maybe a negative number to an odd power. The negative sticks around. It doesn't disappear. And then, you know, you fix that, and then you practice it those remaining, say, 9 or 14 times or whatever, the correct way. So it really closes that feedback loop very quickly. The other nice thing from a practical standpoint is typically you'll have 5 attempts per problem. So if there's 100 attempts for the review material, just to kind of get you acclimated to the system and so on, but typically you'll have 5 attempts, which is usually 4 more than you would have with a paper and pencil homework, right? The ability to have automated grading means that I can give you 5 attempts per problem, and I don't, number one, we don't have a feedback system that's going to take, you know, 5 weeks for you to have 5 tries at a problem. And number two, I don't have 5 times the amount of work, so I can actually practically do this, and you can practically get a better grade on the homework and get more practice that way. Okay, somebody in chat asked, is CCAC partnered with Cengage to get a discount? And I will stop the share because we're about out of time, but the short answer, the long answer is it's confusing. That's complicated. The short answer is our bookstore gets a discount from the publisher, but our bookstore also marks up their prices so that they can make a margin. The bookstore isn't owned by CCAC. So if you buy directly from Cengage, it's probably a little bit cheaper than buying from the bookstore. There are direct access products out there where, like, basically they just wrap it into your tuition dollars, and those can be a little bit cheaper, but they also come with some downsides. So the short answer is it's probably cheaper to buy it directly off the website if you have the ability to use a credit card or something. If you need to use financial aid funds and you need to go through the bookstore, it'll probably cost a little more than buying it directly off the website, but it shouldn't be that much. I think it's, you know, something like $40 versus 50 or 55 or something, maybe, is the difference between the lowest and highest prices. But still a pretty good deal whenever you consider, you know, what textbooks can typically cost, you know, which is typically over $100 per class for textbooks. So at CCAC, we've really been trying to drive down the cost of textbooks for our students. Okay, we are out of time, so I'm gonna stop the recording and the class meeting here.